Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Gnanatimirandasya Gnananjana Salakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. Sri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Darati Swaparantikam. Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Sutapatakamalam Sri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Sri Rupam Sagrijatam Saganaragunatanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Sri Visakanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate गोपेश गोपिका कांता राधा कांत नमोस्तुते तप्त कांचन गौरंगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये पंचाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानं पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। नमो विष्णुपदाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदांत स्वामी निति नामिने नमस्ते सरस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवारि पाशतरिशतारिणे जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। Okay, so today we read the chapter 10. Lord Balaram visits Vrindavan. Lord Balaram became very anxious to see his father and mother, Maharaj Nanda and Yashoda. Therefore, he started for Vrindavan on a chariot with great enthusiasm. The inhabitants of Vrindavan had been anxious to see Krishna and Balaram for a very long time. When Lord Balaram returned to Vrindavan, all the cowherd boys and gopis had grown up, but still, on his arrival, they all embraced him, and Balaram embraced them in reciprocation. After this, he came before Maharaj Nanda and Yashoda and offered his respectful obeisances unto them. In response, Mother Yashoda and Nanda Maharaj offered their blessings unto him. They addressed him as Jagadishvara, or the Lord of the universe, who maintains everyone. The reason for this was that both Krishna and Balaram maintain all living entities, and yet Nanda and Yashoda were put into such difficulties on account of their absence. Feeling like this, they embraced Balaram and seating him on their laps began their perpetual crying, wetting Balaram with their tears. Lord Balaram then offered his respectful obeisances to the elderly cowherd men and accepted their obeisances of the younger cowherd man. Thus, according to their different ages and relationships, Lord Balaram exchanged feelings of friendship with them. He shook hands with those who were his equals in age and friendship, and with loud laughing embraced each one of them. After being received by the cowherd men and boys, the gopis, and King Nanda and Yashoda, Lord Balaram sat down. Feeling satisfied, and they all surrounded him. First, Lord Balaram inquired from them about their welfare, and then, not having seen him for such a long time, they began to ask him different questions. The inhabitants of Vrindavan had sacrificed everything for Krishna, simply being captivated by the lotus eyes of the Lord. Because of their great desire to love Krishna, they never desired anything like elevation to the heavenly planets or merging into the effulgence of Brahman to become one with absolute truth. They were not even interested in enjoying a life of opulence, but were satisfied in living a simple life in the village as cowherd men. They were always absorbed in thoughts of Krishna and did not desire any personal benefits, and they were all so much in love with him that in his absence their voices faltered when they began to inquire from Balaramji. First, Nanda Maharaj and Yashoda Mai inquired, "My dear Balaram, are our friends like Vasudeva and others in the family doing well? Now you and Krishna are grown up and married men with children, in the happiness of family life. Do you sometimes remember your poor father and mother, Nanda Maharaj and Yashoda Devi? It is very good news that the most sinful King Kamsa has been killed by you, and that our friends like Vasudeva and others who had been harassed by him have now been relieved. It is also very good news that both you and Krishna defeated Jarasandha and Kalyavana, who now is dead, and that you are now living in fortified residence in Dwaraka." When the gopis arrived, Lord Balaram glanced over them with loving eyes. Being overjoyed, the gopis, who had so long been mortified on account of Krishna's and Balaram's absence, began to ask about the welfare of the two brothers. They specifically asked Balaram whether Krishna was enjoying his life surrounded by the enlightened woman of Dvarakapuri. Does he sometimes remember his father Nanda and his mother Yashoda, and the other friends with whom he so intimately behaved while he was in Vrindavan? Does Krishna have any plans to come here to see his mother Yashoda, and does he remember us gopis who are now pitiably bereft of his company? Krishna might have forgotten us in the midst of the cultured women of Dwaraka, but as far as we are concerned, we are still remembering him by collecting flowers and sewing them in the garlands. When he comes when he does not come, however, we simply pass our time by crying. If only he would come here and accept these garlands that we have made. Dear Lord Balaram, descendant of Dasharha, you know that we would give up everything for Krishna's friendship. Even in great distress, one cannot give up the connection of family members, but although it might be impossible for others, we gave up our fathers, mothers, sisters, and relatives without caring at all about renunciation. Then all of a sudden, Krishna renounced us and went away. He broke off our intimate relationship without any serious consideration and left for a foreign country. But he was so clever and cunning that he manufactured very nice words. He said, "My dear gopis, please do not worry. The service that you have rendered me is impossible for me to repay. After all, we are women, so how could we disbelieve him? Now we can understand that his sweet words were simply for cheating us." Another gopi, protesting Krishna's absence from Vrindavan, began to say, "My dear Balaramji, we are of course village girls, so Krishna could cheat us in that way. But what about the women of Dwaraka? Don't think they are as foolish as we are. We village women might be misled by Krishna, but the women in the city of Dwaraka are very clever and intelligent. Therefore, I would be surprised if such city women could be misled by Krishna and could believe his words." Then another gopi began to say, "My dear friend," she said, "Krishna is very clever in using words. No one can compete with him in that art. He can manufacture such colorful words and talk so sweetly that the heart of any woman would be misled. Besides that, he was perfect at the art of smiling very attractively, and by seeing his smile, women become mad after him and would give themselves to him without any hesitation." Another gopi, after hearing this, said, "My dear friend, what is the use in talking about Krishna? If you are at all interested in passing away time by talking, let us talk on some subject other than him. If cruel Krishna can pass his time without us, why can't we pass our time without Krishna? Of course, Krishna is passing his days very happily without us, but the difference is that we cannot pass our days very happily without him." When the gopis were talking in this way, their feelings for Krishna became more and more intensified, and they were experiencing Krishna's smiling and Krishna's words of love, Krishna's attractive features, Krishna's characteristics, and Krishna's embraces. By the force of their ecstatic feelings, it appeared to them that Krishna was personally present and dancing before them. Because of their sweet remembrance of Krishna, they could not check their tears and they began to cry without consideration. Lord Balaram could of course understand the ecstatic feelings of the gopis, and therefore he wanted to pacify them. He was expert in presenting an appeal, and thus treating the gopis very respectfully. He began to narrate the stories of Krishna so tactfully that the gopis became satisfied. In order to keep the gopis in Vrindavan satisfied, Lord Balaram stayed there continually for 2 months, namely the months of Chaitra, March, April, and Vaishakha, April, May. For those 2 months he kept himself among the gopis, and he passed every night with them in the forest of Vrindavan in order to satisfy their desire for conjugal love. Thus Balaram also enjoyed the rasa dance with the gopis during those 2 months. Since the seasons was springtime, the breeze on the bank of the Yamuna was blowing very mildly, carrying the aroma of different flowers, especially of the flower known as kaumudi. Moonlight filled the sky and spread everywhere, and thus the banks of the Yamuna appeared to be very bright and pleasing, and Lord Balaram enjoyed the company of the gopis there. The demigod known as Varuna sent his daughter Varuni, in the form of liquid honey oozing from the hollows of the trees. Because of this honey, the whole forest became aromatic, and the sweet aroma of the liquid honey Varuni captivated Balaramji. Balaramji and all the gopis became very much attracted by the taste of Varuni, and all of them drank it together. While drinking this natural beverage, Varuni, all the gopis chanted the glories of Lord Balaram, and Lord Balaram felt very happy, as if he had become intoxicated by drinking that Varuni beverage. His eyes rolled in a pleasing attitude. He was decorated with long garlands of forest flowers, and the whole situation appeared to be a great function of happiness. Because of this transcendental bliss, Lord Balaram smiled beautifully, and the drops of perspiration decorating his face appeared to be soothing morning dew. While Balaram was in that happy mood, he desired to enjoy the company of the gopis in the water of the Yamuna. Therefore, he called Yamuna to come nearby, but Yamuna neglected the order of Balaramji, considering him to be intoxicated. Lord Balaram became very much displeased at Yamuna's neglecting his order. He immediately wanted to scratch the land near the river with his plowshare. Lord Balaram has two weapons, a plow and a club, and he takes service from them when they are required. This time he wanted to bring the Yamuna by force, and he took the help of his plow. He wanted to punish Yamuna because she did not come in obedience to his order. He addressed Yamuna, you wretched river, you did not care for my order. Now I shall teach you a lesson. You did not come to me voluntarily. Now with the help of my plow, I shall force you to come. I shall divide you into hundreds of scattered streams. When Yamuna was threatened like this, she became gratefully afraid of the power of Balaram and immediately came in person, falling at his lotus feet and praying thus, My dear Balaram, you are the most powerful personality and you are pleasing to everyone. Unfortunately, I forgot your glorious, exalted position. But now I have come to my senses and I remember that you hold all the planetary systems on your head merely by your partial expansion as Shesha. You are the sustainer of the whole universe, my dear supreme personality of Godhead. You are full of six opulences. Because I forgot your omnipotence, I have mistakenly disobeyed your order, and thus I have become a great offender. But my dear Lord, please know that I am surrendered soul unto you. You are very much affectionate to your devotees. Therefore, please excuse my impudence and mistakes, and by your causeless mercy may you now release me. Upon displaying this submissive attitude, Yamuna was forgiven, and when she came nearby, Lord Balaram wanted to enjoy the pleasure of swimming within her water along with the gopis, in the same way an elephant enjoys himself along with his many she-elephants. After a long time, when Lord Balaram had enjoyed to his full satisfaction, he came out of the water, and immediately a goddess of fortune offered him a nice blue garment and a valuable necklace made of gold. After taking bath in the Yamuna, Lord Balaram dressed in blue garments and decorated with golden ornaments, looked very attractive to everyone. Lord Balaram's complexion is white, and when he was properly dressed, he looked exactly like the white elephant of King Indra in the heavenly planet. The river Yamuna still has many small branches due to being scratched by the plowshare of Lord Balaram. And all these branches of the river Yamuna are still glorifying the omnipotency of Lord Balaram. Lord Balaram and the gopis enjoyed the transcendental pastimes together every night for 2 months, and time passed away so quickly that all those nights appeared to be only one night. In the presence of Lord Balaram, all the gopis and inhabitants of Vrindavan became as cheerful as they had been before in the presence of both brothers, Lord Krishna and Lord Balaram. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport of the second volume, 10th chapter of Krishna. Lord Balaram visits Vrindavan. Haribol. Oh, Hare Krishna, Dimitri Prabhu, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Shri Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna, dear Prabhus, Dandavad Pranam Jai Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna, Hare Prabhu, Dandavat Pranam, Jai Shri Prabhu. Okay, anyone can continue from this 11th chapter.
Hare Krishna. Chapter 11, Deliverance of Paundraka and the King of Kashi. The story of King Paundraka is very interesting because there have always been many rascals and fools who have considered themselves to be God. Even in the presence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, there was such a foolish person. His name was Paundraka, and he wanted to declare himself to be God. While Lord Balaram was absent in Vrindavan, this King Paundraka, the king of the Karusha province, being foolish and puffed up, sent a messenger to Lord Krishna. Lord Krishna is accepted as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and King Paundraka directly challenged Krishna through the messenger who stated that Paundraka and not Krishna was Vasudeva. In the present day, there are many foolish followers of such rascals. Similarly, in his day, many foolish men accepted Paundraka as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Because he could not estimate his own position, Paundraka falsely thought himself to be Lord Vasudeva. Thus, the messenger declared to Krishna that out of his causeless mercy, King Paundraka, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, had descended on the earth just to deliver all distressed persons. So it's very similar to recent shorts we have
Yes,
been
Prabhu.
released. Surrounded by many other foolish persons, this rascal Paundraka had actually concluded that he was Vasudeva, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This kind of conclusion is certainly childish. When children are playing, they sometimes create a king amongst themselves, and the child who is so selected thinks that he is the king. Similarly, many foolish persons, due to ignorance, select another fool as God, and then the rascal considers himself God, as if God could be created by childish play or by the votes of man. Under this false impression, thinking himself the supreme lord, Paundraka sent his messenger to Dwarka to challenge the position of Krishna. Just imagine. He's challenging
Yes,
God
all these
himself.
YouTube commenters would do like this. They would send drama.
Yeah. Yes. The messenger reached the royal assembly of Krishna in Dwarka and conveyed the message given by his master Paundraka. The message contained the following statements. I am the only Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vasudeva. There is no man who can compete with me. Who can compete with me. I have descended as King Paundraka, taking compassion on the distressed conditioned souls out of my unlimited causeless mercy. You have falsely taken the position of Vasudeva without authority, but you should not propagate this false idea. You must give up your position. O descendant of the Yadu dynasty, please give up all the symbols of Vasudeva which you have falsely assumed, and after giving up this position, come and surrender unto me. If out of your gross impudence you do not care for my words, then I challenge you to fight. I am inviting you to a battle in which the decision will be settled. When all the members of the royal assembly, including King Ugrasena, heard this message sent by Paundruka, they laughed very loudly for a considerable time. After enjoying the loud laughter of all the members of the assembly, Krishna replied to the messengers as follows: O messenger of Paundruka, you may carry my message to your master. He is a foolish rascal. I directly call him a rascal, and I refuse to follow his instructions. I shall never give up the symbols of Vasudeva, especially my disc. I shall use this disc to kill not only King Paundraka, but all his followers also. I shall destroy this Paundraka and his foolish associates, who merely constitute a society of cheaters and cheated. When this action is taken, when this action is taken, foolish king, you will have to conceal your face in disgrace, and when your head is severed from your body by my disc, it will be surrounded by meat-eating birds like vultures, hawks, and eagles. At that time, instead of becoming my shelter as you have demanded, you will be subjected to the mercy of these low-born birds. At that time, your body will be thrown to the dogs, who will eat it with great pleasure. Wow. The messenger carried the words of Lord Krishna to his master Paundraka, who patiently heard all these insults. Without waiting longer, Lord Sri Krishna immediately started out on his chariot to punish the rascal Paundraka. Because at that time the king of Karusha was living with his friend the king of Kashi, Krishna surrounded the whole city of Kashi. King Paundraka was a great warrior, and as soon as he heard of Krishna's attack, he came out of the city along with the two Akshauhini divisions of soldiers. The king of Kashi was also a friend to King Paundraka, and he came out with three Akshauhini divisions. When the two kings came before Lord Krishna to oppose him, Krishna saw Paundraka face to face for the first time. Krishna saw that Paundraka had decorated himself with the symbols of the conch shell, disc, lotus, and club. He carried the Sharanga bow, and on his chest was the insignia of Srivatsa. His neck was decorated. Yeah, you
Imagine
see,
Krishna seeing this. Someone,
yeah, he
someone
looked
has no.
exactly like Vasudeva. Yeah,
Yes, bro.
decorated. His neck was decorated with a false Kaustupa jewel, and he wore a flower garland in exact imitation of Lord Vasudeva. He was dressed in yellow-colored silken garments, and the flag on his chariot carried the symbol of Garuda, exactly imitating Krishna's. He had a very valuable helmet on his head, and his earrings, like swordfish, glittered brilliantly. On the whole, however, his dress and makeup were clearly imitation. Anyone could understand that he was just like someone on stage playing the part of Vasudeva in false dress. When Lord Sri Krishna saw Paundraka imitating his posture and dress, he could not check his laughter, and thus he laughed with great satisfaction. The soldiers on the side of King Paundraka began to shower their weapons upon Krishna, the weapons including various kinds of tridents, clubs, poles, lances, swords, daggers, and arrows came flying in waves, and Krishna counteracted them. He smashed not only the weapons but also the soldiers and assistants of Paundraka, just as during the dissolution of this universe, the fire of devastation burns everything to ashes. The elephants, chariots, horses, and infantry belonging to the opposite party were scattered by the weapons of Krishna. The whole battlefield became scattered with the bodies of animals and chariots. There were fallen horses, elephants, men, asses, and camels. Although the devastated battlefield appeared like the dancing place of Lord Shiva at the time of the dissolution of the world, the warriors who were on the side of Krishna were very much encouraged by seeing this, and they fought with greater strength. At this time, Lord Krishna told Paundraka, Paundraka, you requested me to give up the symbols of Lord Vishnu, specifically my disc. Now I will give it up to you. Be careful. You falsely declare yourself to be Vasudeva, imitating myself. Therefore, no one is a greater fool than you. From this statement of Krishna's, it is clear that any rascal who advertises himself as a god is the greatest fool in human society. Haribol. Krishna continued, Now, Paundraka, I shall force you to give up this false representation. You want me, you wanted me to surrender unto you. Now this is your opportunity. We shall now fight. And if I am defeated and you become victorious, I shall certainly surrender unto you. In this way, after chastising Poundrika very severely, he smashed his chariot to pieces by shooting an arrow, one single arrow. With the help of his disc, he separated the head of Poundrika from his body, just as Indra shaves off the peaks of mountains by striking them with his thunderbolt. Similarly, he also killed the king of Kashi with his arrows. Lord Krishna specifically arranged to throw the head of the king of Kashi into the city of Kashi itself, so that his relatives and family members could see it. This was done by Krishna just as a hurricane carries a lotus petal here and there. Lord Krishna killed Paundraka and his friend Kashi Raja on the battlefield, and then he returned to his capital city Dwarka. When Lord Krishna returned to the city of Dwarka, all the Siddhas from the heavenly planets were singing the glories of the Lord. As far as Paundraka was concerned, somehow or other he was always thinking of Lord Vasudeva by falsely dressing himself in that way, and therefore Paundraka achieved Sarupya, one of the five kinds of liberation, and was thus promoted to the Vaikuntha planets, where the devotees have the same bodily features as Vishnu, with four hands holding the four symbols. Factually, his meditation was concentrated on the Vishnu form, but because he thought himself to be Lord Vishnu, it was offensive. After being killed by Krishna, however, that offense was also mitigated. Thus, he was given Sarupi liberation, and he attained the same form as the Lord. When the hand of the king of Kashi was thrown through the city gate, people gathered and were astonished to see that wonderful thing. When they found out that there were earrings on it, they could understand that it was someone's head. They conjectured as to whose head it might be. Some thought it was Krishna's head because Krishna was the enemy of Kashiraj, and they calculated that the king of Kashi might have thrown Krishna's head into the city, so that the people might take pleasure that the enemy was killed. But it was finally detected that the head was not Krishna's, but that of Kashiraja himself. When it was so ascertained, the queens of the king Kashi immediately approached and began to lament the death of their husband. My dear Lord, they cried, upon your death we have become just like dead bodies. The king of Kashi had one son whose name was Sudakshana. After observing the ritualistic funeral ceremonies, he took a vow that since Krishna was the enemy of his father, he would kill Krishna in this way, liquidate his debts to his father. Therefore, accompanied by a learned priest qualified to help him, he began to worship Mahadeva, Lord Shiva. The Lord of the kingdom of Kashi is Vishwanatha, Lord Shiva. The temple of Lord Vishwanatha is still existing in Varanasi, and many thousands of pilgrims still gather daily in that temple. By the worship of Sudakshana, Lord Shiva was very much pleased, and he wanted to give a benediction to his devotee. Sudakshana's purpose was to kill Krishna, and therefore he prayed for a specific power by which he could kill him. Lord Shiva advised that Sudakshana, assisted by the Brahmanas, execute the ritualistic ceremony for killing one's enemy. This ceremony is also mentioned in some of the tantras. Lord Shiva informed Sudakshana that if such a black ritualistic ceremony were performed properly, then the evil spirit named Dakshinagni would appear to carry out any order given to him. He would have to be employed, however, to kill someone other than a qualified Brahmana. In such a case, he would be accompanied by Lord Shiva's hostly companions, and the desire of Sudakshana to kill his enemy would be fulfilled. When Sudakshana was encouraged by Lord Shiva in that way, he became assured that he would be able to kill Krishna. With a determined vow of austerity, he began to execute the black art of chanting mantras, assisted by the priests. After this, out of the fire came a great demonic form, whose hair, beard, and mustache were exactly the color of hot copper. This form was very big and fierce. As the demon arose from the fire, cinders of fire emanated from the sockets of his eyes. The giant fiery demon appeared still more fierce due to the movements of his eyebrows. He exhibited long, sharp teeth, and sticking out his long tongue, licked both sides of his lips. He was naked, and he carried a big trident which was blazing like fire. After appearing from the fire of sacrifice, he stood wielding the trident in his hand. Instigated by Sudakshana, the demon proceeded toward the capital city Dwarka along with many hundreds of hostly companions, and it appeared that he was going to burn all outer space to ashes. The surface of the earth trembled because of his striking steps. When he entered the city of Dwarka, all the residents panicked, just like animals at the time of a forest fire. At that time, Krishna was engaged in playing chess in the royal assembly council hall. All the residents of Dwarka approached and addressed him, "Dear Lord of the dear Lord of the three worlds, there is a great fiery demon ready to burn the whole city of Dwarka. Please save us." Thus, after approaching Lord Krishna, all the inhabitants of Dwarka began to appeal to him for protection from the fiery demon who had just appeared in Dwarka to devastate the whole city. Lord Krishna, who specifically protects his devotees, saw that the whole population of Dwarka was most perturbed by the presence of the great fiery demon. He immediately began to smile and assured them, "Don't worry, I shall give you all protection." The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, is all pervading. He is within everyone's heart, and he is without also in the form of the cosmic manifestation. He could understand that the fiery demon was a creation of Lord Shiva, and in order to vanquish him, he took his Sudarshana chakra and ordered him to take the necessary steps. The Sudarshana chakra appeared with the effulgence of millions of suns, his temperature being as powerful as that of fire created at the end of the cosmic manifestation. By his own effulgence, the Sudarshana chakra began to illuminate the entire universe, while on the surface of the earth as well as in outer space. Then the Sudarshana chakra began to freeze the fiery demon created by Lord Shiva. In this way, the fiery demon was checked by the Sudarshan chakra of Lord Krishna, and being defeated in his attempt to devastate the city of Dwarka, he turned back. Having failed to set fire to Dwarka, he went back to Varanasi, the kingdom of Kashiraj. As a result of his return, all the priests who had helped instruct the black art of mantras, along with their employer Sudakshana, were burned into ashes by the glaring effulgence of the fiery demon. Wow, that's cool. Yeah. According to the methods of black art mantras instructed in the Tantra, if the mantra fails to kill the enemy, then because it must kill someone, it kills the original creator. Oh, that's why. Uh, yeah, well, Sudarshana was the originator, and the priest assisted him. Therefore, all of them were burned to ashes. This is the way of the demons. The demons create something to kill God, but by the same weapon, the demons themselves are killed. Wow, that's perfect. Following just Following just behind the fiery demon, the Sudarshana chakra also entered Varanasi. This city of Varanasi had been very opulent and great for a very long time. Even now, the city of Varanasi is very opulent and famous, and it is one of the important cities of India. There were then many big palaces, assembly houses, marketplaces, and gates, with very important large monuments by the palaces and gates. Lecturing platforms could be found at each and every crossing of the roads. There was a treasury house, and elephant heads, horse heads, chariots, granaries, and places for distribution of foodstuff. The city of Varanasi had been filled with all these material opulences for a very long time, but because the king of Kashi and his son Sudakshana were against Lord Krishna, the Vishnu Chakra Sudarshana, the disc weapon of Lord Krishna, devastated the whole city by burning all these important places. This excursion was more ravaging than modern bombing. The Sudarshana Chakra, having thus finished his duty, came back to his Lord Sri Krishna at Dwarka. This narration of the devastation of Varanasi by Krishna's disc weapon, the Sudarshana Chakra, is transcendental and auspicious. Anyone who narrates this story or anyone who hears this story with faith and attention will be released from all reaction to sinful activities. This is the assurance of Shukadeva Goswami, who narrated this story to Parikshit Maharaj. Thus ends the second volume, 11th chapter of Krishna, Deliverance of Paundraka and the King of Kashi. Haribo.
Rivo. Yeah, this was amazing story. This is now one of my favorite chapters. This King Paundraka.
Yeah, this story is good.
It looked so funny that Krishna tried to act serious when he came there. He knew already that this is some joke imitation. He tried to be serious, but when he saw him, he couldn't. He just had to laugh. What is this?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, next one is some gorilla.
Dvivida gorilla. Right.
Oh, it's a short one. Okay, let's read it. Chapter 12. Ero Prabhu, you can also read if you want. And Pranjal Prabhu also.
Okay. While Shukadeva Goswami continued to speak on the transcendental pastimes and characteristics of Lord Krishna, King Parikshit, upon hearing him, became more and more enthusiastic and wanted to hear further. Sukadeva Goswami next narrated the story of Dvivida, the gorilla who was killed by Lord Balarama. This gorilla was a great friend of Paumasuras or Narakasuras, who was killed by Krishna in connection with his kidnapping 16,000 princesses from all over the world. Dvivida was the minister of King Sugriva. His brother Minda was also a very powerful gorilla king. When Dvivida gorilla heard the story, I'm sorry, I don't know why I'm not. When Dvivida gorilla heard the story of his friend Paumasuras being killed by Lord Krishna, he planned to create mischief throughout the country in order to avenge the death of Paumasura. His first business was to set fires in villages, towns, and in industrial and mining places, as well as the residential quarters of the mercantile men, who were busy dairy farming and protecting cows. Sometimes he would uproot a big mountain and tear it to pieces. In this way, he created great disturbances all over the country, especially in the province of Katwar. The city of Dwaraka was situated in this Katwar province, and because Lord Krishna used to live in this city, Dvivida specifically made it his target of disturbance. Dvivida. Okay. Okay, Dvivida was as powerful as 10,000 elephants. Sometimes he would go to the seashore and with his powerful hands, he would create so much disturbance in the sea that he would overflow, the neighboring cities and villages. Often he would go to the hermitages of great saintly persons and sages and cause great disturbance by smashing their beautiful gardens and orchards. I don't know how to. Not only did he create disturbances in that way, but sometimes he would pass urine and stool under a sacred sacrificial arena. He would thus pollute the whole atmosphere. Okay. He also kidnapped both men and women, taking them away from their residential places to the caves of the mountains. Putting them within the caves, he would close the entrances with large chunks of stone, like the bringi insect, which arrests and carries away many flies and other insects, and puts them within the holes of the trees where he lives. He thus regularly defied the law and order of the country. Not only that, but he would sometimes pollute the female members of many aristocratic families by forcibly raping them. Oh, okay. While creating such great disturbance all over the country, sometimes he heard very sweet musical sounds from the Raivataka mountain, and so he entered that mountainous region. There he saw that Lord Balarama was present in the midst of many beautiful young girls, enjoying their company while engaged in singing and dancing. He became captivated by the beautiful features of Lord Balarama's body, each and every part of which was very beautiful, decorated as he was with a garland of lotus flowers. Similarly, all the young girls present, dressed and garlanded with flowers, exhibited much beauty. Lord Balarama seemed to be fully intoxicated from drinking the Varuni beverage, and his eyes appeared to be rolling in a drunken state. Lord Balarama appeared just like the king of the elephants in the midst of many she-elephants. This gorilla by the name of Dvivida could climb up on the trees and jump from one branch to another. Sometimes he would jerk the branches, creating a particular type of sound, kila kila, so that Lord Balarama was greatly distracted from the pleasing atmosphere. Sometimes Dvivida would come before the women and exhibit different types of caricatures. By nature, young women are apt to enjoy everything with laughter and joking, and when the gorilla came before them, they did not take him seriously, but simply laughed at him. However, the gorilla was so rude that even in the presence of Balarama, he began to show the lower part of his body to the women, and sometimes he would come forward to show his teeth while moving his eyebrows. He disrespected the women even in the presence of Balarama. Lord Balarama's name suggests that he is not only very powerful, but that he takes pleasure in exhibiting extraordinary strength. So he took a stone and threw it at Dvivida. The gorilla, however, artfully avoided being struck by the stone. In order to insult Balarama, the gorilla took away the earthen pot in which the Varuni was kept. Dvivida, being thus intoxicated with his limited strength, began to tear off all the valuable clothes worn by Balarama and the accompanying young girls. He was so puffed up that he thought that Balarama could not do anything to chastise him, and he continued to offend Balarama Ji and his companions. When Lord Balarama personally saw the disturbances created by the gorilla and heard that he had already performed many mischievous activities all over the country, he became very angry and decided to kill him. Immediately he took his club in his hands. The gorilla could understand that now Balarama was going to attack him. In order to counteract Balarama, he immediately uprooted the big oak tree, and with great force he came and struck at Lord Balarama's head. Lord Balarama, however, immediately caught hold of the big tree and remained undisturbed, just like a great mountain. To retaliate, he took his club by the name of Sunanda and began to hit the gorilla with it. The gorilla's head was severely injured. Currents of blood flowed from his head with great force, but the stream of blood enhanced his beauty like a stream of liquid manganese coming out of a great mountain. The striking of Balarama's uprooted. Now I skip. The striking of Balarama's club did not even slightly disturb him. On the contrary, he immediately uprooted another big oak tree, and after clipping off all its leaves, he began to strike Balarama's head with it. But Balarama, with the help of his club, tore the tree to pieces. Since the gorilla was very angry, he took another tree in his hands and began to strike Lord Balarama's body. Again, Lord Balarama tore the tree to pieces, and the fighting continued. Each time the gorilla would bring out a big tree to strike Balarama, Lord Balarama would tear the tree to pieces by striking off his club. The gorilla Dvivida would clutch another tree from another direction and again attack Balarama in the same way. As a result of this continuous fighting, the forest became treeless. When no more trees were available, Dvivida took help from the hills and threw large pieces of stone like rainfall upon the body of Balarama. Lord Balarama, also in a great sporting mood, began to smash those big pieces of stone into mere pebbles. The gorilla, being bereft of all trees and stone slabs, now stood before him and waved his strong fists. Then, with great force, he began to beat the chest of Lord Balarama with his fists. This time, Lord Balarama became most angry. Since the gorilla was striking him with his hands, he would not strike him back with his own weapons, the club or the blow. Simply with his fist, he began to strike the collarbone of the gorilla. This striking proved to be fatal to Dvivida, who immediately vomited blood and fell unconscious upon the ground. When the gorilla fell, it appeared that all the hills and forests tottered. After this horrible incident, all the siddhas, great sages and saintly persons from the upper planetary system, began to shower flowers on the person of Lord Balarama, and sounds glorifying the supremacy of Lord Balarama were vibrated. All of them began to chant, "All glories to Lord Balarama. Let us offer our respectful obeisances under your lotus feet. By your killing this great demon, Dvivida, you have initiated an auspicious era for the world." All such jubilant sounds of victory were heard from outer space. After killing the great demon Dvivida and being worshipped by showers of flowers and glorious sounds of victory, Balarama returned to his capital city, Dwaraka. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport of the second volume, 12th chapter of Krishna, Deliverance of Dvivida Gorilla. Thank you, Hari Bol.
VOL, thank you so much, bro. Okay, so now let's go to Sixasta Compare. Yeah, this Vivid and Gorilla was crazy fellow. He did crazy stuff.
Yeah, it sounded like very crazy. What
Yeah,
he did. Pervert, you know.
yeah. Yeah, some people, I know many people who are crazy fellows like this. They do all crazy stuff. And they think they're really strong and
Imitating Dvivika.
yeah.
But yeah, he was very demoniac, raping people and showing his,
Crazy.
that was pretty okay. But yeah, Krishna, that was cool how badass Krishna was, like severing head off and sending it to the relatives. Like,
Yeah.
that was cool. Don't mess with Krishna.
Yes, bro. Yeah.
Haribo. Cheto darpanamarjanam bhavamahadavagnirvapanam shreyah kairavachandrika vitaranam vidyavadu jivanam anandam buddhivardhanam pratipadam purnamritasvadanam sarvatma snapanam param vijayate Sri Krishna Sankirtanam.
Sorry. Namnamakari bahudha nija sarva shaktis tatrarpita niyamitak smaranena kalha etadrishi tava kripa bhagavan mamapi durdaiva midrisha mihajini nanuraga.
Trinadapi sunichena tarorapi sahisnuna amanina manadena kirtaniya sadahari.
Nathanam najanam nasundarim kavitamba jagatisha kamaye mama janmani janmanishware bhavatad bhaktirahaytuki tvai.
Ayi nandatanuja kinkaram patitam mam vishame bhavam budau kripaya tava pada pankaja stita duli sadarsam vichintaya.
Nainam galadashudharayam vadanam gadgadarudhaya gira polakari nichitam vapuhu kada tavanama grahane bhavishyati.
Yugayitam nimeshena chakshusha pravirshayitam shunyayitam jagat sarvam govinda virahena me.
Ashlishyava padaratam pinastumam adarshanam marmahatam karotu va yatha tatha va vidatha lampato matprananathastu saeva na paraham.
Haribo. Glory to the Sri Krishna Sankirtan, which cleanses the heart of all the dust accumulated for years and extinguishes the fire of conditional life of repeated birth and death. This Sankirtan movement is the prime benediction for humanity at large, because it spreads the rays of the benediction moon. It is the life of all transcendental knowledge. It increases the ocean of transcendental bliss, and it enables us to fully taste the nectar for which we are always anxious.
O my Lord, your holy name alone can render all benedictions, benediction to living beings, and thus you have hundreds and millions of names, like Krishna and Govinda. In these transcendental names, you have invested all your transcendental energies. There are not even hard and fast rules for chanting these names. O my Lord, out of kindness, you enable us to easily approach you by your holy names. But I am so unfortunate that I have no attraction for them.
One should chant the holy name of the Lord in a humble state of mind, thinking oneself lower than the straw in the street. One should be more tolerant than a tree, devoid of all sense of false prestige, and should be ready to offer all respect to others. In such a state of mind, one can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly.
O Almighty Lord, I have no desire to accumulate wealth, nor do I desire beautiful women, nor do I want any number of followers. I only want your causeless devotional service, birth after birth.
O son of Maharaj Ananda, Krishna, I am your eternal servitor, yet somehow or other I have fallen into the ocean of birth and death. Please pick me up from this ocean of death and place me as one of the atoms at your lotus feet.
O my Lord, when will my eyes be decorated with tears of love flowing constantly when I chant your holy name? When will my voice choke up, and when will the hairs of my body stand on end at the recitation of your name?
O Govinda, feeling your separation, some considering a moment to be like 12 years or more. Tears are flowing from eyes like torrents of rain, and I'm feeling all vacant in the world in your absence.
I know no one but Krishna as my Lord, and he shall remain so even if he handles me roughly by his embrace or makes me broken-hearted by not being present before me. He is completely free to do anything and everything, for he is always my worshipful Lord, unconditionally.
Haribol, Sri Siksastakam ki jai, Krishna Bhu
Jai,
ki jai,
Jai,
Panchatattva ki jai, Nityananda Prabhu ki
Jai,
jai, Sri Krishna
Jai,
Mahaprabhu ki jai,
Jai,
Jagadguru Shla Bhakti Vedanta Swami Shla Prabhupada ki jai, Nitai Gaura
Jai,
Hari Hari Bol.
Jai, Hari Hari Bol.